the loudest, just guttural yell. It literally felt like it was right there in my face. My name is Richard Farabee. I'm with a group called Bigfoot Forest Giants, or BFFG. That's what we use on our YouTube channel, BFFG, Bigfoot Research. It's kind of a weird story. I had my first encounter in 2005, and it made some changes in my life. I was an avid hunter back then, and then when I had the encounter, I pretty much gave it up. Just kind of scared me enough that I didn't understand, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So I kind of gave it up. And years later, many years later, I had come in contact with Kerry Arnold. We ended up becoming good friends, and at that time he was doing the getting prepared for the 168. And during those conversations, and I'm kind of combining it all, he introduced me to Jimmy Barr, which was somebody that was like on a wish list of people to meet, because I've heard a lot about him, and I knew his encounter, and I really respected the guy a lot. So he was on that list of people to meet, and long story short, Kerry made that happen, and come to find out that Jimmy only lived 2 counties away from me. So he had already formed the group Bigfoot Forest Giants with another one of his childhood friends that he's grown up with, and went out a few times with them, and then one thing led to another. I was in the group, and we've been going strong for the last 2 years now.
Wow. Well, tell me about that first encounter. Give me some details of that. What happened?
Well, it was in 2005, and I had reconnected with a buddy I was stationed with in the military, and he lived in Florida. He lived on the East Coast. I lived more in Central Florida, and at that time we were both avid hunters. And he had invited me to come there and scout some areas, look at some places for the next hunting season, and we were going to hunt together. And so I drove up there. It wasn't a long drive, a couple hours. And when I got to his house, plans had changed. I don't remember if it was he had to go to work, or his wife had said, she had things for him to do. He couldn't go with me. So I was kind of bummed. I drove 2 hours, and we weren't going to be able to hit the woods together. And so he was like, look, on the way here, you pass that area. And he kind of showed me on a map where it was and everything. And back then it was maps. It wasn't, Google or anything like that. So I said, all right, I'll check it out on my way back home. And because I have to drive right past this wilderness area. So as I'm driving there, I'm looking for the entrance, and it took a little bit, but I found it, and I entered this wilderness area. And it's just a really, really long road, and I'm unfamiliar with the place. I've never been there before, so I just kept driving, and I was down that road for quite a few minutes. And at one point, I saw this big trailhead on my right hand side. I said, well, I'm just going to pull over here. I'm going to walk this trailhead and see what I find. If I see any signs of deer or anything like that, game trails and so forth. So I pull over, I get out, and I had nothing with me. I wasn't hunting. I didn't have a gun. I didn't have water. I didn't have anything. I was just regular clothes, jeans and a camo shirt, and heading into the woods. So I started going down this trail, and I went down it maybe a half a mile. And then there was this bend in the trail, like four-wheelers make, like a berm. But it wasn't made by four-wheelers. It just resembled that. And I said, well, I'm going to climb to the top of this, which is only another 4 feet of height, and see if I can get a better view and stuff like that. So I climb up this berm, and I'm looking around. And when I look down, I notice this really good game trail. So I said, well, I'm just going to follow this trail and see what I find. So I climb down the backside of this berm, and I start taking this trail through this pine forest. Well, then the pine forest opened up into a field of palmettos that were on average about waist high. And it was only about 100 yards was the distance of this field. And then it was back into a pine forest. So I figured I'd just zigzag around these palmetto bushes and work my way back to the other side. So the whole time I'm looking down, I'm just walking and I'm looking down, looking for deer tracks or any signs of anything. And not paying. Now I'm deep in thought, just doing my thing. And I get about halfway across this field. Like I said, it wasn't long. It's about 100 yards. So I'm probably about 40, 50 yards into this field looking down. And all of a sudden I hear the loudest, just guttural yell. And it was just, to this day, it's hard to explain how loud this was. It literally felt like it was right there in my face. That's how loud it was. I tell people, if you were watching King Kong on Dolby surround sound at the theater and it was cranked full blast, that's what it sounded like. It was just this massive yell, and it lasted like a split second. It was like a whip, like a wah, just this loud yell. And as fast as that yell hit me, I looked up and turned around. That fast. I just looked up and turned around. Fear just overtook me. I was extremely, extremely scared at this point. I had no idea what this was. I didn't look up and pause and look around. I immediately turned around and started walking out. And the whole time I'm walking out, the only thing I can think was, don't run. Don't run. Just keep walking. Don't run. Don't turn around. Whatever it is, it's going to kill you. Just keep walking. Just keep going. And as I'm walking out, I hear this noise at my 5 o'clock and at my 7 o'clock. And it sounded like sandbags just being dropped on the ground. That heavy thud, and it was doom, doom, doom. And it sounded like it was coming from my right and coming from my left. Like there was two of them. Not sure on that because I never turn around to look, but it just felt that way, that there was two of them on each, one on each side of me. The adrenaline's pumping. I'm almost like delirious, focused on just get out, get out, get out. And I'm walking, and I'm not zigzagging anymore. I'm just breaking brush. I'm just walking straight out, not even going the same path I came in. I just continuously walk forward. And at that point, when this happened, like I said, I'd walked a half a mile to the berm, and I'm probably another half a mile in. So I'm a mile from that road that I came in on, and it felt like forever. I mean, it literally felt like all day to walk that mile. And the whole time my heart's pounding, adrenaline's going. And in my mind, I just keep it just over and over and over. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Don't look. Just keep going. Just keep going. You're almost there. You're going to make it. And finally, I break out of the pine forest. I'm at the road. I look to my right. My truck is probably a few hundred yards to my right. So when I made the beeline back, I actually ended up behind my truck. At that point, once I got on the road, I just started running to my truck, got in my truck, turned it around, and headed out there as fast as my truck would go on that gravel road. Never spoke to my friend again, and never went hunting again. I was done with the whole thing. I didn't want to talk about it. Fear was just all I felt. And for years, it just bugged me. It just nagged at me. I just always thought about that. And every time I thought about it, that fear would come back. I could literally feel the fear as if I was reliving it at that moment. So it took a long time to even discuss it or anything like that. I gave most of my hunting equipment to my brother and friends, and they're like, oh, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? I found other hobbies. I'm moving on to other things, but I didn't want to let anybody know that I got scared out of the woods, because, most of my friends and family, they're very, alpha male, A personality type people. So, I just kind of left it alone. Yeah. Throughout the last 16 or so years, I had spoken to some people that I would trust. I was married at the time. I talked to my wife just a couple of years ago when I was married, and told her what was going, what had happened and stuff like that. But like I said, it just always intrigued me. So I started reading anything, watching anything. I was if it was Sasquatch related on YouTube, I was watching it. I didn't care how stupid or, generic it was. I was watching everything. And through that, I found Bigfoot Odyssey, which was Kerry Arnold. And one night he gave out his email address and said, anybody wants to hit me up, blah, blah, blah. So I did. And that one thing led to another. And like I said, he introduced me to Jimmy Barr and some other researchers and started going out. And now I pretty much go out every single weekend. Every weekend I'm in the woods continuously searching for this thing.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I could just feel the kind of the panic that had to set in, and understand that, moving slowly out of a woods when you want to just be running out of there must have been very hard and required a lot of discipline.
Well, the urge to run was just unbelievable, but my mind just kept telling me, don't do it. If you run, you're prey. And it's all I kept telling myself, because I was just kind of bringing in the same focus as a hunter, that if you came across a bear or a Florida panther, these are things you do. You don't run. You don't become prey. You don't become the toy that they want to chase. So that thought just kept sticking in my head. Don't run. Just keep focused. Stay forward. Don't turn around. Don't make eye contact with whatever it is. What was really, and this is what I just found out recently, because I was back in that same area 2 or 3 weeks ago. We did a joint expedition with Sasquatch Encounter Brigade and Bigfoot Forest Giants. And we were in that same, it's 90,000 acres. So I wasn't in the same spot, but I was in the same woods. And I was talking to a FWC biologist that happened to be at one of the entrances, and started talking to her. And the conversation came about weapons, with the new laws in Florida with constitutional carry and all this. And she made the comment. She goes, "Well, around here, you really don't need anything unless you're hunting, because we don't have bears." She goes, "We have no bears out here at all." And that's when it rang in me, that kind of added credence to what I dealt with, that whatever it was that yelled at me evidently was not a bear, because I got a biologist saying we don't have bears in this area. So that kind of helped us out on that expedition too, because if we had ran into a hunter, because it was opening weekend for hunting season, and if we had come across a hunter and they said something like, "Oh yeah, man, I saw a bear while I was out there," that would ring in our heads like, okay, it wasn't a bear, because we were just told that there's no bears in this area. So yeah, just that fear. Every time I go out, I still feel it. Every time I go out, I still get that, that anxiety in my gut. If I'm with a group or with a couple guys and we're breaking brush and doing things, I'm okay. But especially night investigations, it really, really gets me. And through being with Bigfoot Forest Giants, and I've had, especially this year, I've had some really good encounters. But I've had things thrown at me and stuff like that, and none of it scared me as much as that initial contact. So when we have vocals, I get really, really excited when I hear a vocal, because I think that's really what rings inside of me, is the vocalizations, because that's what scared me.
So that vocal that you heard, that initial one, the first time you heard this, it was just this one single cry out.
Yeah, it was fast. I mean, it was like, it's like being in your car and hitting the horn real quick. When you scare somebody when they walk in front of the car, it was like that fast. It was like a wah, just this loud, guttural scream that literally, it was that fast. It could have been longer. I mean, there's no way I can replay it that in that detail in my mind. Because as soon as I lay my head down and think about it, it's the fear that really overwhelms the thought process. But it couldn't have been more than 2 seconds, 3 second, just this loud guttural, just this loud scream. That's all I can call it. It wasn't a growl like a a dog would growl or something like that. It was a yell. I got the feeling that whatever it was telling me, leave, get out of here. I don't want you here. And that was received very well, very clear. And I turned around and left immediately.
So
I didn't hesitate.
in all the research that you've done since then, have you ever heard that sound again?
I've sometimes with other researchers, evidence and stuff like that, I'll hear something that is almost similar. It was nothing like the Sierra sounds or anything. It wasn't a long, drawn out howl. You know what I mean? It was very in your face, distinct, blam, like a parent yelling no. It was just that abrupt, very loud. Get out of here, leave. You know what I mean? It's like telling your dog no, stop, or something like it was like this loud guttural command. And that's what it felt like inside. Like I needed to leave. I need to leave now. And my body was telling me I'm in danger. I got to go. And like I said, as quickly as I can pop my head up, I was already turning around. Sometimes with what I know now compared to 2005, I think if it happened again, I would probably pause for at least a couple of seconds to look and pan that tree line. But I think the thing was a lot closer. With talking to different researchers, they kind of gave me the feeling that this thing was probably a lot closer to me than the tree line, which was probably another 50 yards away. It was probably a lot closer because these things are known to be, get down on all fours. So it could have been below the palmetto level. And I was walking up on it. I surprised it. It didn't know I was there. I didn't know it was there. And then it just gave this yell for me to leave. That was their take on it, that it could have been a whole lot closer. Like you said, I don't know. At the time, I wouldn't ever say it was a Sasquatch because, again, I did not see it. But when you do the, subtracting what is normal out there and what would make these calls or what would make these vocalizations, it really, really limits it. You know what I mean? Because I YouTubed everything. I YouTubed as far as grizzly bears, and we don't have no grizzly bears in the state of Florida. We just have small black bears, and just that yell, that growl that they do, and it didn't even resemble that. It was something very distinct, very different. Come to find out later, and this is through, talking with Kerry Arnold. That was the location, was because that's what started the conversation with me and him. Was I sent him an email when he gave out his email address, and I sent an email and said, listen, I live in Florida. I don't know where you guys are planning this expedition. I said, but if you have the opportunity, or if you ever, basically I was telling him, this is where you want to go. And I told him what wildlife management area I was in. I said, this is where you need to go. Literally 5 minutes later, he sent me a message back saying, what's your phone number? So I gave my phone number. He called me almost instantly. And first thing out of his mouth was, how do you know about that place? And that's when I went into what had happened to me and stuff like that. And he said, well, that's where we're going. So the whole 168 was all done at that same location. And they did get vocalizations. They did get footprints, and stuff like that. So, and the second 168 was also going to be planned there. I was going to be a part of that second 168, and but Kerry passed away, and it never happened. So, but every time he would come to Florida, and he came to Florida quite a bit, quite frequently, he would call us, and Bigfoot forest giants would meet him, and we'd go out in the woods with Kerry, and we were lucky enough to spend his birthday with him, which was an exciting time. He did a live show with us there and everything. That was pretty exciting. It's fond memories of Kerry. And, but he kind of put me on track, and he put me, with Jimmy and stuff like that. So that kind of created the progression into, where we're at now. you know.
So tell me, when you went out with Carrie and you investigated all of this, tell me some of those experiences that you had out there.
Well, with Carrie, it was always a short weekend. It was either we met with him on Friday, we'd go out Friday night, Saturday night, and then usually he would head out or do something with another researcher that he was friends with here in Florida, and for the last day or something like that. A lot of it was night investigations. There was we've had nights where there was one night where a rock was thrown and it hit the truck, and everybody heard it. Even the live show, they heard it ping where it hit the side of the truck. But again, vocalizations, wood knocks, that area has a lot of reported sightings from hunters. There's other researchers that go out there. There's a couple other research groups that have spent time out in that same location. So yeah, it was just a lot of breaking forest, going out in the woods. It's really swampy and stuff like that. I know one occasion Carrie had broken off by himself and was going down this gravel road, and I don't know how far down he got. He got a couple hundred yards down, and he came back really quickly, and he's like, guys, I got something paralleling me. It's walking in the woods paralleling me. So we all started grabbing thermals and night vision and started heading down that road to see if we can locate whatever was paralleling. But we never did find anything. But it's a very, very intriguing area, very intriguing. We also took Sasquatch Encounter Brigade out there. They were very intrigued. Most of the places we took them were at night, so they want to see things during the daytime too. So we're planning another trip next.
Did anyone ever get a actual physical sighting out there?
Yeah, there was another researcher there that he says he's seen them out there. Well, a couple of researchers. Dr. Hewitt, who's a cryptozoologist, he's had sightings out there, a couple sightings. I know Mark Zaski, he claims that he's seen them out there. It's a few people. Matter of fact, there was a camper out there, and they had walked over. We think he's a homeless guy, but they went over and started talking to him, and he had mentioned that something had entered his camp, one night, and so he was a believer. He says, yeah, something entered my camp. And I had a similar thing happen to me back in December 25th. It was Christmas weekend last year, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I had an encounter inside my camp where something had come in and, rubbed the top of my tent and stuff like that. And tried to walk away with some of my stuff.
Did you get any footprints after the fact on that? If it came into your camp?
Well, the ground was really, really hard. It's wintertime, even in Florida. It was 29 degrees that weekend. So, if you left water outside, it was going to freeze. And the whole day was like that. I had gotten up that morning and went for a hike. I got to this one trailhead, and I remember the spot distinctly because there was two water sources on both sides of me, two pools of water about the size of a king size mattress on each side of the trail. And so I decided to make some calls, and I don't do calls often. I don't do tree knocking often. So I made a couple of calls, and I waited, about 5-10 minutes, just waiting to see if I got a response, and I didn't get anything. So I started walking. I probably went another half mile, 3/4 of a mile, and got hungry because it was 6 a.m. when I started the hike. Decided to go back to the camp, make some hot dogs for breakfast or something. When I came back and I got to that exact same spot, there was a palm frond laying in the middle of the trail, green. It was fresh, laying in the middle of the trail where I just made those calls a half an hour before, and it wasn't there before. And it was ripped. I don't know if you ever dealt with palmetto in Florida. You can't pull them. you have to take a knife and cut them. There's no way, even if you're a big man, 6'4", 250 pounds, you can't pull these things out. They're just extremely strong. Whatever did this, pulled it, and it looked like a grenade went off at the bottom, like it just ripped it. And it was just laying right there in the middle of the trail. And so I thought that was very odd. I waited around a little bit, looked around to see if I saw anything. I didn't see anything. Went back to my camp. I spent the day hiking different areas. Then it was early evening, probably 10 or 11 o'clock that night. I was just getting ready for bed, and I heard this scream. It was just a weird scream. I don't know if it was just a bird I've never heard of or whatever, but that late at night, you usually don't have, birds screaming like that. But it was a weird scream. I could never reenact it. It was just the weirdest scream I'd ever heard. And it was close. It was probably, 100 yards away from my tent. And again, I had chosen that weekend because, it was Christmas weekend. I knew nobody would be out there. And if there was, it'd be very sparse, because everybody's with their families for the holidays. And it was the coldest weekend that we had that year. It was, like I said, 29, 30 degrees. So I heard this scream and everything. Waited a while. It only did it once. So I went back to bed, and I want to say it felt like, because I don't know what time it was, but it felt like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And, I was woken up to the sound of something rubbing my tent, that very distinct hand rubbing tent vinyl. It's just very distinct sound. And my tent at that time, the tent I had at that time, stood about 5 feet tall. And it was rubbing the rain fly on the top of the tent. It was rubbing it. And it would come all the way from my left and go all the way to my feet, and then come back around. So here I am. I'm like, okay, I'm going to catch this thing. Now, remember, it's 29 degrees and I'm in a sleeping bag. So the only thing I'm wearing is a pair of long johns. And I grab my flashlight and I grab my phone. And I'm like, I'm going to catch this thing. And I already got the phone set, ready to hit record. And I got my fingers on, holding the flashlight, and my thumb and my forefinger on the zipper of the tent door. So I'm sitting there waiting, and I can still hear it rubbing. Then it stops. So I sit there for a minute waiting. Then I hear my cooler. I have a small cooler, and just a regular handheld cooler, and it was being walked away. You can literally hear everything sloshing back and forth inside the cooler. And this was not a light cooler. It wasn't heavy, but it wasn't light. I had a 10-pound bag of ice in it. I had drinks. I had hot dogs. I had condiments. It was full of stuff. So it wasn't a raccoon walking away with it or anything like that. And I could hear it sloshing as if you were walking with it. And that's when I was like, holy crap, it's got my cooler, and that's all the food I have. So as quickly as I could unzip that tent door and stick my head out, it was gone. It was gone. I didn't hear it run. I didn't hear it break brush. I heard nothing, but I could see my cooler about 20, 25 feet away, just laying there. And it was right outside the door. It was that close to me when it got picked up. I literally, if the tent door was open, I can reach in the cooler and get a drink. That's how close it was. And now it's 20, 25 feet away. So I jump out of the tent. I'm just nothing in my long johns. It's freezing cold. And I got my flashlight, which is a super, super, super bright flashlight. I can light up the moon with this thing. And I'm shining everywhere in the tree line, everywhere. Walking around my tent. I find nothing. I hear nothing. Then panic sets in. I'm like, holy crap, maybe it's up. So I started looking up in the trees, thinking maybe it went upward instead of outward. Still didn't see anything. Ended up taking my cooler, and I still have the cooler to this day. And there is literally like a fingernail scratched right down the handle, right on the side of the cooler, where it's like the thumb scratched it with whatever picked it up. The thumbnail scratched it. It was a brand new cooler because I had just bought it maybe 2 days before the trip because I didn't own a cooler, and it's got this deep scratch in it. So I put the cooler inside my truck on the floorboard, shut the truck, locked it, and went back to bed. When I got up the next morning, I walked around, looked around. but the ground was so compact, so hard, and there was a lot of leaf litter because I was surrounded by trees, so there was a lot of leaf litter, especially being in wintertime. The hardwoods were dropping all their leaves, so I didn't find any prints or anything like that. So that was a very, very strange encounter, very, very strange. So that was in December, and then February, I decided to go back, and there's a few more people there. It wasn't really crowded or anything like that, but there were some campers that were a little bit closer than I would like people to be. I like to be a couple hundred yards away from people. But I set everything up the exact same way, except for the cooler. I kept that in the truck. But I set the tent up the same way. I parked the truck at the same place and everything else. And this time I brought my dog with me, my dog Bailey. And very quiet dog, doesn't bark, doesn't growl, just a quiet dog, just has no care in the world, just has love to give and just doesn't bark or growl. And she was doing wonderful. It was the first time I taken him camping, and he was doing wonderful. So that night we go to bed, and I brought his bed so he was familiar with something, and we go to sleep. This time I did not have the fly on the top of the tent. Now my tent is a window all the way around. So if I sit up, I can see 360 degrees around me. And that's why I purchased the tent. That way I can, use my thermal or binoculars, whatever I need to do. I can see outside. The fly itself is the only cover when you use the fly. So I'm sitting there sleeping, and I hear my dog growl, and it woke me up, and it kind of spooked me. I was like, my dog never growls ever. And he's at the foot of my air mattress, and he's looking to my left at the window that's right here beside me. And he's just sitting there, this low growl, just this very low growl. And I'm looking at him, and I can tell where he's looking at. So I'm sitting there debating, okay, what do I do? What do I do? So I said, well, I'm just going to sit up and look, So I sit up, and I slowly turn my head to the left. Now, this is a small tent. They say it's a 4-man tent, but it's really a 1-man tent. It's not, it's not, the window is probably, I can reach over and easily touch it. And on the other side of that screen, there is something watching me. It's just literally, if the screen wasn't there, I could touch it in the face. That's how close it was. And it was just staring at me. And it was so dark, I can see the outline of the body, but I couldn't tell what it was. I could just tell there's something there, and it's looking at me. And that mental thought, when I come back and look at it today, and I replay it in my mind, it kind of just reminds me, and I tell people, it's kind of like how back in the movies where gargoyles, how they squat. It kind of reminded me that whatever it was squatted down, and it was just staring right at me. I heard no breathing. It didn't make a noise. It just stared at me. So I'm staring at it. I'm locked on this thing in case it moves left or right. I'll definitely see movement, but it just stayed there looking right at me. So I reached down and I grabbed my flashlight. Now, this is a powerful flashlight, and I'm like, I'm about to blast this thing right in the face, and I'm going to see what this is. That was my mistake. I didn't realize, I knew that if the fly was on this stuff, I wouldn't be able to see. When you turn on a light in a tent, people can see you inside, but you can't see out. Well, evidently it has the same effect with just the screens, because as soon as I hit that flashlight in the face of this thing, I couldn't see. It was just, I was blinded by the light reflecting back at me, and whatever it was shoved my tent and took off. I saw the whole side of the tent push in. And at that moment, my dog jumped. I mean, literally left the ground, landed on me, ran behind me. So now I've got to be the savior, you know what I mean? And I was hoping he'd protect me, but here I am trying to protect my dog. And so fumbling to grab everything, I open the tent, I go out, whatever it was long gone. To this day, don't know what it was, but whatever it was very quiet when it sat there, and it just watched me. And I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, but it was the same height as me if I was just sitting up. And I turned, we were level with each other. It wasn't taller than me, it wasn't shorter than me. We were face to face with each other. But I got the feeling that it was squatted down, kind of like sitting on its butt, but with its knees up. It just kind of gave me that feeling. That's how it was staring at me. To this day, don't know what it was. I have no idea. And those are some of the most recent stuff this past year. That was December and February.
Any other experience you've had before that?
No, I mean, we find when we go out as a team, we do find some pretty good, anecdotal evidence. We'll find tree structures. We were out at that place where I had my initial encounter in 2005, and we had gone back out there, not in the same location, but the same woods. And we had found what we thought was like it looked like a bunch of weeds that made a dome, and it had an entrance. And so I crawled inside of it to look around and stuff, and it was like an igloo. It was just vines that created this habitat. And in the middle of it was a hole, just a small hole about the size of your hand, and it was probably 3-4 inches deep with a stick in it, just like a pencil-sized stick, like something was in there digging with this stick. And I took pictures of it. I still have those photos and stuff like that, and thought it was very intriguing, because if there's something that's digging for grubs or digging for something, to hold that, it would have to have a thumb. Raccoons don't do it. Squirrels don't do it. They don't use a stick. I don't know anything else that would use a stick. So we kind of rack it up as this could be possible, good evidence. A few weeks later, we're at another location not far from there, and I found this exact same thing again, down a trail, and it was right in a trail. There was a hole, and there was a stick sticking in the hole, like something was digging in there. I've spoken to other researchers, and they've all come across the same thing. They think it's juveniles, like they're left there while the adults go do whatever, and they're left there, and that's just them playing, entertaining themselves, is what they think. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't say anything with absolute, because unless I see it, then we can only speculate. But it's definitely intriguing. We found sticks the size of like a broom handle, just a broomstick, let's say 3-4 feet long stick, just shoved into the ground. And we tried to reenact it. And I'm 210 pounds. I'm 5'10", 210 pounds. And with all my weight, I could not reenact it. I could not get that stick to stick into the ground. But yet this stick is shoved in there maybe 6 inches into the ground. That's in one of my videos. I take it out, I show them. We found that a few times. We found some fantastic arches. We just found one just recently, met her 2 or 3 weeks ago. Me and another guy went out to this research area that I've been hitting a lot this year. And we found an amazing arch. I mean, it's a 20-foot tall tree with a group of trees, all of them growing, all pines growing perfectly normal. And then one of them out of that group is completely bent down and wedged around another tree, probably 30 feet away. 20, 30 feet away, because it's a tall tree. I didn't measure it, but it's a tall tree. And it was pulled all the way down and wrapped behind this tree. Somebody had to have done that. It couldn't, an animal didn't do it, and the wind didn't do it. We looked around, there's nothing around that resembled that. No other trees bent over, nothing. It's just this one pine in a group of pines bent completely over and wedged behind that. But what we did find that was, remarkable was there was a game trail that literally went that direction and went right underneath that arch and continued in the woods. So I don't know if this is them marking a game trail to say, hey, this is a good hunting area. Here's a game trail. I don't know. We only speculate what this conversation is with all these tree structures and stuff like that. We found some that were bent over and the top of the tree was shoved into the ground, just shoved into the ground. That takes strength. I couldn't do it. I couldn't reenact it. So we find some really unique things. Jimmy and Bobby, those are the other guys on the team, found a 15-inch three-toed footprint that they casted in Ocala. So there's strange things out there. It's like Jimmy will say, he goes, I can't tell you that this is a Sasquatch. What I can tell you is this is a 15-inch three-toed footprint. That's all I can tell you,
What do you think these things are?
My opinion, I am your ground roots, boots on the ground. I try to keep things as simple as possible. I understand that a lot of people are into the paranormal side of it. With portals and orbs and, all these different things. I'm not saying anything against that. Maybe true, maybe not, but I had not experienced any of that. So I try to make it make sense in my head. So when I go out there and I'm looking at it in a hunter's perspective on what this is and what am I tracking. To me, I think it is a primate, not necessarily like a gorilla, but a primate type animal. I think it breathes, it eats, it sleeps, it makes families, it travels. So I think it is normal in the aspect that it's an animal. Like I said, I don't know of any. I have not experienced anything paranormal to say that it's anything other than that. But it leaves tracks, and people have found hair samples. People have found scat. We find the holes, we find the trees. So to me, it's an animal. I think it's a living, breathing thing that we just haven't, been able to prove. Some of us believe it. We know it. We have enough evidence that, if it was a human in a court of law, we can convict. But for some reason, academia and scientists just don't want to accept it. I believe they know it's real. I believe they know. They're just not going to acknowledge it. If you go into what is it called? I think it's the Great Swanee hunting regulations in the state of Florida. It's a government website. Okay, it's .gov. It's a government website, and I have a copy of this if you ever want to look at it. But if you go into the hunting regulations and you go to hog hunting, in that paragraph about hog hunting, it literally says at the bottom, there is no taking of skunk ape, Sasquatch, whatever. It has this whole line in there about you're not allowed to shoot them. You're not allowed to take them. Why is that in there? Why did they slip that in there? And we've discussed it. And this is what I told them. If I was going to hide that in there, one, you want to put something like that in there because you want to cover yourself in case this thing does get shot or killed. And it does get out there before you're able to cover it up. So you want to cover yourself. That way you can hold that person accountable for shooting it because, oh, wait a minute, we have a regulation here that says you can't take one. But two, they put it in the hog section. And the reason why they put it in the hog section is nobody goes there to look at regulations because there is no regulations for hog hunting. Yeah, you can shoot hogs year round. You can shoot them at night. You can use a flashlight. I mean, any law for hunting is broken when it comes to shooting hogs because there's such an intrusive species on the land here. They don't care how you kill them, kill them. But so nobody's going to go read those regulations. So I think that's why they slipped that sentence in there, and it's very brief, very short. So I think they know it's there. I think they're just covering themselves in case something happens,
Have you heard the Sierra sounds?
I have heard the Sierra sounds.
What do you think of those?
I think they're unique to that area. I think there is a difference between what we're experiencing here in the South than what they're experiencing there. You know, the only question I ever have with any of those loud, long, drawn out howls is, this is, to me, this is a creature that is doing everything it can to not be found, to not be seen, and to not be bothered. Why would it yell like that? Why would it scream like that loud? See what I'm saying? I'm not saying it didn't do it. It's very, very distinct that the Sierra sounds. But I've always tickled me that, you know, man, if I'm playing hide and seek with everybody, why would I scream? You know what I mean? We get vocalizations here, but they're quick whoops. We have one recorded where me and Jimmy were coming out of one of our research areas where we leave apples and stuff like that. And we were walking out, and he was running a parabolic, but he was facing the opposite direction. We were actually leaving the area. And as we're walking out, you literally hear this like a gorilla. And in the video, you hear me say, I hit Jimmy, I go, that was an effing gorilla. I just heard a gorilla. And we both turn and we're looking back. He said, you know, where did you hear it? Where'd you hear it? I said, and I'm pointing right back where we just came from. So Jimmy goes back there and walks around, doesn't find anything. We get back to the truck and we play the audio. Sure enough, there it is in the audio, that's on our YouTube channel. If anybody wants to go way, way back, it's titled "Sounded Like a Gorilla." But you hear this very distinct, ooh, 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 you know. So we get vocalizations. We've heard some yells, but they're always short. They're not a howl. They're not a long, drawn out, howl like the Sierra sounds. But it's more of a scream, more of a yell. And it lasts just a second or two. But very distinct, very, very spooky, something that you wouldn't want to hear on Halloween. It's just a very distinct yell, very distinct. And we've caught that on audio. We were out one time and there was a little production crew that wanted to do a little short on us. And I took them out there, same area, that we're researching here in Central Florida. And while we were talking, long story short, while we were talking and discussing things, that yell happened. And they just stared at me like, what was that? And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the noise that we've recorded. And they heard it. They caught it on their audio. Since then, and just recently, I pushed towards that area where that howl came from. Slowly pushed further and further and further back into that wildlife management area. I think I'm in the area where it came from. We found some weird stuff. Like I said, we found that arch a couple weeks ago, and also found a dead hog that its legs were broken. It wasn't shot. There was no place where it was, mauled by a panther or anything. It was just a 25 pound hog with its legs broken, and we can't explain it. Like I was telling one of the other guys, it's not natural. If an animal killed it, a panther or bobcat or anything that had some size to it to kill a 25 pound hog, killed it for a reason. They killed it to eat it, and they usually either eat it there or drag it off to wherever they want to go, and they eat it. This was just left there, and had broken legs, literally snapped broken legs. Can't explain it.
And no tracks around there or anything like that?
No, that's the hard part in Florida. We have a lot of leaf litter. To get a really good print, you have to find some swampy areas that the ground is softer because it's a little bit more moisture. Most of the areas I'm in are pine forests and hardwood forests, so there's a lot of leaf litter. I try not to go into the swamps too much because we have alligators and stuff like that, water moccasins. Florida's got a lot of things that will do you harm. So I like to stay in the pine forest and stuff. I'm more geared towards the pine forest because of my very first encounter anyways was in a pine forest environment. We do go into swamps. We actually, when we had that joint expedition, we had a pretty freaky thing happen the last night we were there. We had been out all night long in the swamps, and we found some possible footprints. The hard part with the footprints is in the swamp, you can't cast them. It's just there's too much moisture. The casting material won't dry. It just keeps absorbing water. Even if you don't see water, it's just very moist ground. But we got back to camp, and we're all just kind of relaxing. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, that we're sure of. And three of us were under this pavilion, and all of a sudden we had the loudest, deepest growl, just this growl, and it was close. We all three jump up, and we're looking at each other like, holy crap, what was that? We have this growl to our left, then all of a sudden we have another growl in front of us. So now we got two things growling. So we start walking towards the woods, into the wood line. All of a sudden we have a third one. So now we have three growls going on around us. So the only light we had was my headlamp, but the whole time I'm recording on my phone because that's the only thing we had, because we had just got back. Batteries were dead on a lot of the equipment, but I at least had the sense of myself to grab my phone and start recording. So the whole time I'm recording, I got Johnny trying to talk to him. Hey, buddy, come on, what's up, buddy? And I'm like, I don't want to talk to one of these. I just want to see it and move on, Lloyd's walking around. We're just checking everything out. Then they start moving away from us. As we move into the woods, it moved away. Even one time in a video, I say, hey, let's move back towards the camp, see if they move forward again. But they started to work their way around the camping area. And we had called Bobby and Jimmy. Bobby came. Bobby's like, oh, it's alligators. It's alligators. You know what I mean? Talking to Jimmy the next morning, Jimmy was probably 150, 200 yards away because he likes to camp by himself. He had the same thing going on outside his tent. Something was growling outside his tent. So I think it's kind of weird that there was three of us there and there's three growls, and then one guy over here by himself and he's got one growl. But we don't know what it was. We're not sure. We never saw alligators, but we never saw Sasquatch either. So I posted the video, just posting it, as, hey, here's our experience. And then I get a message from Jimmy saying, hey, don't delete any of that. He goes, I think you got something. So he turns around. I got these pictures. They're amazing pictures. But as you zoom in, there's eye shine. There's eye shine, and it's tall. Whatever it is, it's tall, and it's eye shine. Don't know what it is. Like I said, I'm wearing a small headlamp. It wouldn't reach that far out. I wish I had my big, powerful spotlight on me at that time. Hindsight's 2020 now. But as a group of us, since we couldn't prove it was a Sasquatch because none of us saw it, or at least a number of Sasquatch, or alligators because we didn't see them either, we just kind of said, okay, let's just say it's alligators and move forward. Let's just move forward. You know what I mean? Because that's just how we are. If we can't give you 100%, this is what it is. We saw it. This is what it is. We don't want to jam ourselves in a corner and say this is what it was and kind of find out later it wasn't. So we put the evidence out there. And like me, when I go out and I do my videos and stuff like that, I don't claim anything. I'll say something as into the manner of, this is a possible print. This is very interesting. Or look at this structure. That's very interesting. Could Mother Nature do it? Sure. But I leave it up to the viewer to come to their conclusion on what they think created the footprint, or what they created the structure. Or I caught a good vocal, you know what I mean? And I was like, in the video, I caught it. Thank God I caught it. Very loud in the video. And I said, did y'all hear that? Did you hear that? But I don't claim what it is. In my heart, I'm telling myself what I think it is, but I let them decide because I don't want to lead anybody on. You know what I mean? Nobody's ever led me on. I don't want to lead them on. I want them to just come along for the ride. That's pretty much what my videos are, because a lot of times I don't get anything. I'll spend 3-4 hours out in the woods and get nothing. And I still post a video saying, hey, look, we went out, we did this, this, and this, and there was nothing. That's squatching. That's what it's all about. I mean, you've got some famous people out there, Grover Krantz and Jeff Meldrum, and just different people that's been doing this for 30, 40 years and still have never gotten a sighting. So you don't expect that, when you watch these channels and stuff like that, that these guys are going to come up with something every single time they go out in the woods. That's impossible. I do about 250 hours a year in the woods. It sounds like a lot, but when there's 8,400 hours in a year, 250 is not a lot. But it's more than the average person. And in the last, let's say, 2.5 years, I've got 3 incidences. See what I'm saying? So it's few and far between, but the object is to get out there all the time. Just constantly get out there. You're not going to find them from your couch. You got to get out there. You got to walk around. And I do my videos for those that can't get out there. You got somebody living in a city. They don't have access to the wilderness. Or it's somebody that health-wise, they can't get out in the woods, but they really enjoy the subject. Well, they can live vicariously through my videos. I'm taking them along for the ride. Sometimes we get something, sometimes we don't. But at least I lay it all out there and say, hey, this is what we're doing and stuff like that. Like I said, sometimes weird things happen. Crazy things happen. I had something happen just a few months ago in a new area. I went there because there was a Class A sighting. And long story short, I left an apple, and I had no high expectations of this whatsoever. To me, if you leave food or anything out in the woods, any animal is going to come and eat it. So you come back and it's gone. That's not saying much. So I left this apple, and it was either a week, maybe 2 weeks later, I went back. It might've been a week. But I went back, and I couldn't find the stump that I left the apple on. It took me forever to find it. I thought I marked it where I could find it, but it took me a long time. I was out there for a couple of hours, and I finally found the stump. So I walk up to the stump, apple's gone, no surprise, but there's a golf ball left there. Can't explain it. Don't know where the golf ball came from, but there's a golf ball on the stump. So you get weird stuff like that.
Do you have anything else you want to say? I'm getting ready to end our interview tonight. It's been absolutely fascinating. You've had some wonderful experiences, and I appreciate the work you're doing out there in the research and your willingness to share that with us.
No, I'm glad you contacted me and asked me to do this. It's been great. You're a wonderful host, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, me too. And I'll let you know when this comes out.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Can I plug my channel?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, if anybody's interested, we're in South Florida, and it's the YouTube channel is bffg Bigfoot Research, and bffg is Bigfoot Forest Giants. They can go there. It's a new channel. We only created a channel about 10 or 11 months ago. But they're more than happy to go through our videos and comment and tell me what they think and stuff like that. We also, if they ever want to contact us, if they live in Florida and they would like us to come out and talk to them or check out an area that they think is good, they can reach us at bigfootforestgiants@gmail.com.